Hello everyone, my name is Eric. I am a SuiteScript coach over at Stoic Software. I'm here today on behalf of Salto to show you what it looks like to manage your NetSuite ecosystem with the Salto platform. We'll take a brief tour of some of Salto's core features and the deployment lifecycle operations that you can perform with it. Let's get right into it. Now you can see this is not a brand new Salto account. I've already set up two environments pointing at two different NetSuite developer accounts. If this were a new environment, the first step is to create an environment, connect it to your NetSuite account by installing a Suite app and setting up some tokens, and all of that is documented by Salto's setup instructions. When we click on one of these environments, we are presented with the ability to explore that environment. Salto is able to retrieve and interact with nearly everything in our NetSuite account. If we browse through these folders here, we can see all of our custom record definitions. If I click into one of these, I can see all of the settings for that custom record. I can see the fields on that custom record, as well as their definitions. And I can see the dependencies. I can see what other custom objects this record uses, references, and I can see what other custom objects reference or use this custom record. I can see right here this custom record is used by a saved search and a custom segment and another field. Moving on, we can also see all of the folders and files in our SuiteScripts directory in the file cabinet. If I pop open one of these script files, once again I can see its sort of configuration, but I can also see the contents of that script file. And I can also see, again, the dependencies of this script file. So I know that this file itself is utilized by a user event script. So this is a user event entry point, but I can also see that this script uses a custom field as well as a saved search. So Salto is able to scan the source code here and find the custom IDs that we're using for other custom objects in the account and tell us that this script uses those or relies on those customizations. So we can build that understanding of the dependency tree for our customizations. And that comes into play when we are trying to deploy. Salto is able to validate that all of our dependencies are also met. We can also see all of the customizations we've made on or with native record types. So we can see custom lists we've made, we can see roles that we've made, saved searches that we've made, and we can click into any of these to see their settings and configuration as well. You can see all the values of this saved search, and I can once again see the dependencies. Lastly, we can see all of the settings and features in our NetSuite account. We can browse all of the various preferences, accounting preferences, company information, company preferences, and we can also see the features which are enabled or not in the account. I can come into company features, and in this account, I can see that advanced printing is on while advanced jobs is off, etc. And I can pull all of that down and see at a glance what the setup is for a particular account. And later on, we would actually be able to sync these features between different accounts. And of course, I don't have to poke around manually looking for what I want. I can search the entire configuration from the sidebar here. So if I wanted to find all of my saved searches, I can simply type saved search. And I'm going to switch over to the files view from the elements view just to get a little more filtered view of everything. That filters out some of the internal Salto workings. And here are all of the saved searches for our account. Perhaps I have a specific ID or a pattern of IDs that I want to look for. I can easily search on those as well. I happen to know in this account I have a handful of saved searches where their ID starts with custom search X. So I can type that right here to find those. And here are our three saved search definitions. Here we are looking at the internal representation of a saved search in Salto. If I switch back to the elements, we get that same view we had before with the different values and dependencies. While inspecting any of these elements in our NetSuite account, over here on the right, there's a handy button where I can just click and open it up in the NetSuite UI. It takes us straight to whatever that element definition is. Here's our saved search. With all of this, Salto makes identifying, locating, and reviewing any element or elements of your NetSuite configuration incredibly easy. But what can we actually do with that information? I'm going to open up a custom field definition in Salto, and this is a checkbox on the employee record, and users are having a little trouble understanding what to do with it or why it's behaving the way it is, so we want to make a change to that custom field. Here is our custom field definition, and I can open the field in Salto here, of course, and I can also pop it open in NetSuite. And from here, I can make that change. For the demonstration, I'm just going to add some more information to the help field. Click Save. And when I come back to Salto, what I can do on the right is force a manual fetch. This tells Salto to go get the current state of the environment. So it's going to go pull down everything in the account and get its freshest state. With the fetch complete, I can refresh the page, and we should see our change in the help text of the field now. Here's the help field, and we can see that we have added our information. Now, let's say for some reason we needed to roll back that change. The only way to do this right now is to go back into NetSuite and make that edit manually again. We have to revert the change we made manually, save it, and once again run a fetch in Salto. Now, it's great that we can see our changes in Salto after the fact, after they've already been made in NetSuite, but it's not apparent anywhere that a change has been made or why it was made, and it's even more difficult to roll those changes back, especially as those change sets get larger and larger. With Salto, we can do so much better than that. Let's go through that same change management process, making a change, deploying it, and rolling it back with Salto instead of NetSuite directly. We want to make the change in our dev3 environment, so that's where we start. And then we select Compare and Deploy. We switch this main dropdown from Compare and Deploy to Edit and Environment. And then we click the button. Now here we select the environment we want to change, which is dev3. The title can be anything we want. I recommend using some sort of version numbering system, preferably one that coordinates with whatever project management system or tool or process that you are using, so that you can tie your changes and deployments to your project management system easier. I'm going to name this one. We can see that before, if I cancel this real quick, we can see before the last thing we released and rolled back was v1.0.0. So I am just going to name this one, v1.0.1. And I'm able to add a more detailed description, which I will do. I'm going to include the issue key from my project management tool. Perhaps I'm using Jira or something similar to that. If you happen to use Jira and connect your Salto account to your Jira account, Salto will automatically recognize issue keys in these descriptions and link those issues to deployments. Once I've added that, I can click Edit and Deploy. Now Salto is showing us the environment's configuration. And from here, we can search for the elements we want. So I want my manager reviewed checkbox. And either hovering over it or in the sidebar here, there are edit buttons. I'm going to click Edit. Now this once again opens up Salto's internal definition of this field, what Salto calls the NACL file, with their files with these NACL extension. These files are highly readable, but they are also editable. So rather than logging into the NetSuite UI and making my change manually, I'm going to edit it directly in Salto, making the same change I made before in the help field. You can see Salto automatically saved that change. And once I've made it, I can click Preview Deployment. Salto will now validate our changes against the account and all the dependencies on that field. If there were any anticipated problems, we would see them reflected in these tabs here. Now from here, we ourselves, other members of our team, other stakeholders on the project could inspect this deployment and review it, approve it before it goes into the NetSuite account. And with all of that completed, all that's left to do is deploy this change to our NetSuite account by clicking Deploy. Our deployment succeeded. I can click into the custom field, click Open in NetSuite to very quickly verify that the change was made. And there is our additional help text. Later, if we wanted to come back and see exactly what was done and changed, I can just come back to the environment, compare and deploy. We can see v1.0.1 listed here. I can click into it, see exactly what changed. Salto shows me exactly what fields, what properties on this custom field were changed as part of this deployment. We can see who and when, and there is still more we can do. First, let's imagine something went wrong with the change that we made, and we need to roll it back. I know that's unlikely since all we changed was some help text, but the contents of the change are less important here. We know that something broke in our NetSuite account after we deployed v1.0.1, and we need to revert those changes, so let's do just that. We want to revert the change made to dev3. I'm going to navigate there, click Compare and Deploy to get my deployment history, and then I'm going to click Compare and Deploy. In both the source and the target, I want the same environment. So they both say dev3, and when they match, Salto gives us this Select a Snapshot option. So I'm going to select the snapshot, which was right before we deployed v1.0.1, the previous stable version of our account. I'll tell Salto to fetch now, so it's going to go out and get the current state of dev3. So any other changes that have been made will get incorporated. I'm going to give this a title of v1.0.1 rollback so that we know this is a reversion. And click Fetch, Compare, and Restore. This will perform a comparison of these two snapshots and tell us exactly what is different between them. There might be some additional changes that get picked up because we are fetching at the same time. So we may see more changes than we want to roll back, but that's okay because Salto will let us select the individual changes that we'd like to make. Okay, that's complete. And we can see our manager reviewed field is here. And it's telling us that what will change in this rollback is that the text we added will be removed. And we didn't detect any other modifications between these two snapshots. From here, I can click Preview Deployment. So Salto is now validating our changes just to make sure all the dependencies are met and we're not going to have any problems during deployment. And once that's complete, we are ready to deploy our rollback. And with the deployment complete, I can switch back over to NetSuite, refresh the page, and hopefully see that our change has been reverted. We are back to the original state of this custom field. In our list of deployments in dev3, we can clearly follow the chain here where 1.0.1 was deployed and then rolled back because we are naming these releases consistently. By making our changes in Salto rather than through NetSuite, we can quickly deploy our changes. We have a record of those changes, and we can quickly roll them back should we need to. And there is still more we can do. At this point, I want to take a quick look at the settings and configuration that Salto gives us. So I'm going to navigate into Dev3 again and click on Settings. First, of course, every environment has a name, and we can change that name at any time. We also have connections to an application. This environment is, of course, connected to NetSuite. I could also connect additional accounts. You can see here the list of all of the supported applications at the moment. So if this NetSuite account was maybe tightly coupled or integrated to a Salesforce account or a Zendesk account, and we were consistently managing and deploying changes to those two accounts together, we might want to group them into the same environment. So far, you've seen me manually run fetch operations to tell Salto to update the status. We can run those automatically on a schedule. Come in here and click Set up a schedule. We can choose from daily, hourly, and weekly. And within weekly, we can refine the days and the time that those automatic fetches happen. Because this is a demo account, I don't need to waste resources and automatically fetch. We're just going to fetch on demand. Next, we can label any environment as sensitive. This offers some fairly simple guards against accidental deployments. After I turn it on, you can see that Salto adds this yellow diamond shape to the environment. And from now on, whenever we try to deploy to this environment, Salto will give us just an extra prompt right before deployment that says, "Are you sure this is a sensitive environment?" So I'm actually going to switch that. I'm going to turn that off for Dev 3. And to set up our next scenario, I'm going to change Dev 2 to our sensitive environment. The last setting requires an integration with a Git provider. If you have a Git repository to manage some of your NetSuite changes. If this is enabled on one of your environments, you can connect that environment to a Git repository. And from then on, Salto will create pull requests in your repository for any deployment that you create. You can then leverage all the power of pull requests as part of your deployment flow. Any validations or approval conditions that are set on the pull request will also be required to deploy to that account. That would include any continuous integration checks, any branch protection rules, any code reviewer approval rules, anything like that. All of those rules will apply to your deployments as well. If you're not familiar with Git or with pull requests, that's okay. You can easily save this feature for the future. Okay, I have set up a little scenario now. In Dev 3, I've actually made several off-screen deployments, and we can see them here, 1.0.2 through 5. Each one has a separate Jira ticket associated with it and a description telling us what was changed in that. And so the scenario here is that we were having some trouble around that manager reviewed field. We have a script and a workflow that used that field, and the way those were operating, there was some problems with inactive records. So an administrator has come in and fixed the field configuration and the workflow, and then a developer came in and fixed a user event script. And one of those deployments actually failed. That will come into play later. And in this scenario, Dev 3 is acting like our testing environment, our sandbox perhaps. And Dev 2 I've marked as sensitive before. This is acting as our production account. So all of these changes have been deployed to Dev 3. So let's say that all of these have passed their testing and they are ready to go to production. And because they're all focused around the same feature, we want them to go into production at the same time. Here's how easy Salto makes that. I'm here in Dev 3 on the compare and deploy page, and all I need to do is select the deployments that I want to promote. 1.0.4 failed to deploy in Dev 3, so we don't want to include it in our production deployment, and it was fixed. The problem was fixed in .5. I select each of the deployments I want to promote, and I click Promote. I select my target environment. I do want to fetch now and get the latest state of that environment. And perhaps we're grouping all these minor sort of fixed versions into a larger version tag. You may have a completely different versioning and numbering system. That's totally fine. The point here is to title these in a way that makes sense for our company. We do it consistently the same way every time so that these deployments are identifiable, searchable, discoverable, and auditable. In our description here, we could have links to maybe Jira issues, project plans, approval documents, perhaps if we have change control approvals that need to happen before anything gets to production, we could link or otherwise put that information here. I'm going to click Fetch and create deployment. And once again, this will go out, package up all of those separate versions into one deployment and validate that deployment. It's going to check all the dependencies and the latest state of production. With validation complete, the deployment is now staged and ready to go to production. Once again, at this stage, other stakeholders, other team members could come into Salto, review these changes, approve them, comment on them before we actually send them to production. But once we're ready to do so, all that's left to do is click Deploy. This here is our prompt. Dev 2 is a sensitive environment, something you may want to do on any of your production environments. It just gives us this last prompt that tells us it's sensitive, gives us an "Are you sure?" gives you that one last backstop to make sure you know you are affecting production. And with that completed successfully, we have now deployed v1.1 to production. We know exactly what smaller versions were contained in that. We know exactly what changes were made as part of that release. We know who made them, when they were made. Hopefully we're using those description fields in our Jira issues or other project management tools to describe why they were made. And we can easily roll all of that back should that cause any problems in production. Okay, that was a lot. I hope today gave you some insight into the power and ease of managing your NetSuite ecosystem with the Salto platform. If you'd like to try out Salto for yourself, you can head over to salto.io where you can sign up for a free 30-day trial and request a free demo. There's a link in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.